Allow me to paint the scene. Your level 20 party, honed to a razor's edge, finally confronts the Terrasque, the ultimate creature in Dungeons & Dragons, and the battlefield is a flat, empty field. And 3 rounds later, the wizard is hovering safely out of reach, and the paladin lands a pair of crit hits, and the legendary engine of world-ending destruction collapses with a rather disappointing thud. When you're creating your world, why is the battlefield not as exciting to use and exciting to fight in as the very creature that you are confronting? So today we are going to design a battlefield worthy of the ultimate monster in D&D. We're going to create the lair of the Terrasque. Hello adventurers, and welcome back to the Red Quills. My name is Ryan, and today we are at day 15 of the Red Quills Mapvember Challenge. We are halfway through, can you believe it? Halfway through November, halfway through the 30 maps that I'm creating, halfway through this collaborative atlas that we are working on, and I'm going to be creating the lair of Ogadoon. Now what I want to do today is I want to continue the fine tradition that we've been going on with and make a lair that complements the abilities and lore and stats of the creature that we're focusing on. So generally speaking, that's whatever spells a wizard uses, or whatever abilities a hag has, or whatever lore we know about kobolds or goblins. And this is going to be no different. But when you're dealing with a monster with a CR as high as the Terrasque is, it's worth noting that when you're against something that has such destructive potential, you can't get higher than level 20. So there is a ceiling to what our heroes can achieve. So I want to create a lair that is both going to aid it, to expand on its lore and make it exciting and interesting to fight, but also to give them clues as towards an advantage, so that the whole of combat is as much of a puzzle as it is a trap, as it is an interaction and a lore dump. So that's what we're kind of aiming for here. Let me know at the end of the video if you think that I have achieved it. Otherwise, if you're new, by the way, to the Red Quills Mapvember video, welcome. It is great to have you. We have been making one of these videos every day for the whole month. We're about halfway through now, and you should check them all out. Like and comment on this video to help it find other people. And as always, let me know what your thoughts are as you expand your world if you use these principles. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get out an A4 sheet of paper and use the standard fine liners to sketch this layer out. Now, earlier in the series, only a few days ago, I made the Moor, which is a sort of ancillary layer to this one. It adds on to a bit of the lore of what we're going to do here, but it's also a precursor to what the players are going to fight. So it's worth noting that if the players do make it in here, they will already have been weakened by their encounter with the mad Svirfneblin there. But I have made this deliberately extremely difficult because stat blocks in D&D at level 20 are frankly insane. Honestly, level 20 itself doesn't add too much to very many classes, but once you get past level 17, they're practically unstoppable unless you really set your mind towards killing them. And death is much more optional at those levels than it is in earlier levels, so I'm not against making things a little bit more difficult for them. So onto the lore of what we're creating now. The idea is that in my part of the world, in Requield, the corner of the world that I am designing was the site where the creator god long ago fell to earth and died. And in the cavity of his cadaver did a great deal of magic reside. Now, because he's a god, he doesn't experience death as mortals do. It is, again, like for a level 17 character, much more optional than it is for mere mortals. So one day his brother will figure out how to revive him, and he will stand up and leave once again. This death is much more akin to a sleep than it is, but it still decays over time, and the natural ambient magic of the creator has bled out into the world. But if they make it past the defenses and they head further into the cavity of his chest where once his heart was, before his brother pulled it from his breast, they will find a vast chasm where the lungs yet still move and the tendons that once held the heart yet hang from that stony ceiling. And in the center, amidst a pool of bile that sizzles in the air and clouds of poison made from the acids of a god, they will see the cocoon of the Terrasque, Ogadoon. Now, what I'm aiming for here is that Ogadoon is something created by the ambient magic of the decaying god. So he's something that will naturally happen if you leave a god to decay on the world. Because decay for them isn't like it is for us, all of the ambient magic in particular parts of him, circulates and cannibalizes itself and turns in upon itself, so that where once his heart was, the magic that once flowed there coalesces into a solid creature, one that is filled with all of the dreaming power that the god yet leaks into the world. And so that hatred that it has, despite the shame of being cast down, the anger of being forgotten, forges itself into a creature with hate coursing through its veins, with the destructive potential of a god. And so that's how we create the Terrasque. And of course, people having divination powers and living near the corpse of thousands of years have picked up enough in dreams and prophecies to know about Ogadoon, the Terrasque itself, and that one way or another, the world will end at the hands of the Creator, either by it rising from the seas when his brother awakes it, or at the hands of the Terrasque, formed by its deathly nightmares. So with that in mind, let us design a bit more of the lair. Now, what I'm thinking of is not only how to best make use of the Terrasque and its abilities, but also how to challenge the players and give them the opportunity to solve a puzzle. So the first thing we've got to do is we've got to look at the stat block for the Terrasque. And honestly, it's not all of that complicated. We're just dealing with what is basically a superpowered T-Rex. The most interesting thing about it, well, it's twofold. The first thing is that it can swallow players whole, and whilst players are within its belly, they take acid damage and they're restrained, and I think that that's really fun for role play opportunity. But it's also resistant to magic, which is, again, quite handy if you're facing a wizard at level 20. Other than that, it's just extremely resistant to all attacks and is frightening to look upon, both of which are, fair things to have for a creature of its challenge rating, but nothing that is going to push us too far in terms of creativity. So what can we do in order to use that stat block to best effect? Well, the first thing we're going to notice is, of course, it is immune to several conditions and damage types, one of which is poison. So if we fill the air with poisonous gas, fill the water with boiling liquid so that it deals fire damage or acid damage, then the Terrasque isn't going to be as bothered as the players will be. The poison condition is debilitating for player characters, and the Terrasque can't be hurt by it. It can take a few other damages that the players can inflict upon it. What we're going to do is give them the opportunity to inflict some of these status conditions on it without needing to have a monk in the party. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start designing the different parts of this chamber so that they make sense with the lore and they give the players opportunities and challenges. So first things first, we're going to make the chambers of where the heart used to be. So in the original conflict, one brother turns against the other and he sticks his hand into his chest, pulls out his heart and casts it into the sky and creates the sun. Classic creation mythology, but it means that the walls that once held the heart there, the tendons that once held it in place near to the lungs, are still kind of hanging there. And in that central area where the heart once was is where Ogadoon has been gestating. Ideally, he will have woken up before the players arrive so that they arrive moments before he finally bursts out, and that's when combat starts. But if you have it so that he is activated as they enter or after they enter, then that's fair as well. That's just where Ogadoon is going to be. Then we're going to look at the water around it. Now, they sailed in here through the moor on a ship, and they had several status conditions there for like poison in the water or acidic damage. And what I want to do is use that. They are within the body of a god. So what I want is the stomach acids of the god have mixed with the water and had a chemical reaction that creates clouds of poison and drifts of acid. Now, it should be noted that Terrasque actually isn't resistant or immune to acid damage. It can still damage the Terrasque. So the Terrasque will try to stay on land as much as it can. But even then, if you make the acid damage fairly low, then it's going to be a mere nuisance to the Terrasque and more of a continuous status problem for the players. That's what we want to do. You want to wear them down because this combat's going to take quite some time. And now that we're filling out the viscera of the god, we figured out the stomach acids and the clouds of poison, which could either do poison damage, which the Terrasque is immune to, or it could force a save against the poison condition, which again, the Terrasque is immune to. Then we head on to, I want 2 islands of what we'll call land for the purposes of this experiment. They're 2 vast oblong islands on either side of where the heart used to be, and they move slowly, getting larger and then smaller, growing and shrinking over time, and they are indeed the lungs of the god. Not only do they provide a safe area on which to stand for the players, but I think it's also very interesting if you make the environment reactive to whatever the players do. If they use fire damage or force damage that hits the area of the lungs, then they could flutter, causing tremors in the world that the players will need to make a save against or become thrown prone. But that will give them somewhere to stand that isn't in the acid and is away from the poison. So we've given them a dangerous area and a safe area, particularly if you make it pocked with the kinds of, pustules or bronchioles that you'll find in the natural lungs, so it's difficult terrain on the islands themselves. So now let's give them weapons and toxins against them in this environment. We've already made the environment interesting. We've made it reactive to them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in some broken bones where the spines used to be. And the spinal fluid still leaks from where the break was, and it can be used as poison against Ogadoon. And I don't mean literally poison. Obviously, he's resistant or immune to that kind of thing. What we're talking about is if they can find a clue in the outside world that, the fluids of a god are anathema to whatever, comes against it, then they can gather whatever fluid leaks from it, they can dip their swords in it, and it deals to Ogadoon in particular, who is gestated within the heart of the creator god, something like, 4d10 acid damage on a hit. No save required. And I think that in and of itself not only creates a puzzle for them to solve and makes the environment, again, more interesting and interactable, particularly if you put it in the water, so it's a risk for them to go and get it, but it means that it gives them an advantage that they have to pay for. They have to sacrifice their movement in order to get there. They have to risk being poisoned or being burned by the acid, and then they have to get close enough to Ogadoon to do it. You're not going to be able to use it in a spell. You're going to have to dip a weapon into it and fire it at the creature. So there's enough problems there that the benefit of the poison is something they could give or take depending on how the battle is going. And then lastly, we want to give them another advantage, one that isn't offensive but is ideally defensive. They're going to be losing a lot of life on this, and potions only go so far. So what we want to do is give them a balm. I'm thinking one of the veins of the god yet bleeds into the water, and if they touch it or if they drink it or whatever you want to do that's not super gross, is it will heal them for the same amount as a potion of superior or supreme healing. It's still a bonus action. It still takes a chunk out of their action economy, but it means that they're going to be able to heal themselves over time. Perhaps if they stand in the cloud of blood in the water, they heal on their turn by a certain amount that is less than what it would be if they take a bonus action, but is enough to keep them on their feet. I would say tailor that to the abilities of your party. It could be that it doesn't heal them directly, but if you have a cleric, improves the ability of their healing powers. What we're looking at here is trying to keep the players on their feet whilst empowering the Terrasque in an environment that is hostile to the players. We want them to feel like this is an uphill battle, but also, here's the secret, everyone, we kind of want them to win. So we want it to be difficult, but we don't want it to be impossible. And that's a tightrope walk that you're going to have to take when you run a kind of encounter like this. And so that once we're finished, we have a layer that looks like this. And you'll notice that I've added in as well some areas in red hatching that are areas that the Terrasque can rip out of the ground and throw at the players, because again, more fun if it's interactable, and the Terrasque is extremely strong. We're talking about a strength score of about 30 here, so it would be very easy to do that. For that, it's a dex save against, falling rock, massive amounts of bludgeoning damage, that kind of thing. Overall, I think it looks pretty good. I think it will make enough of a challenge to be interesting and give the Terrasque the feeling of being the climactic final battle, despite the fact that its stat block isn't quite as exciting as some of the other earlier creatures that you will have encountered. It is a creature of brute force, so we need to balance that up with effects and puzzles in its environment. So tell me, what do you think? Did you design your own Terrasque encounter? Let me know in the comments below, or share it on social media, or go to the Discord in the link below and tag me there. Please tag me, because I get a lot of messages and I don't respond to all of them because there's just so many of them. So if you want my attention, just tag me in it. But thank you for joining me for this, and tomorrow's prompt is going to be another city map. It's been pointed out to me that I do a lot of site maps in this series. I've done a few realm maps, but so far I've only done one city map. So in order to actually, spread out the love a little bit, tomorrow we'll be focusing on a capital city map of Verdan. So what does a capital city look like? What does it have in your world? The challenge is to sketch it out so that it has the landmarks that a capital city has and the layouts that a capital needs. So tomorrow we'll talk more about that, but until then, happy mapping, and I'll see you then.